A billionaire told his young son to choose a new mother from a room full of rich, flawless models. Cameras were flashing. Guests were watching. But the little boy ignored them all and walked straight toward the black maid scrubbing the floor. "I want her," he whispered. The room erupted in gasps. No one understood why, until the truth about his real mother, the late nights, and a promise whispered in the dark brought everyone to tears, including the billionaire himself. Carter Montgomery believed he could buy anything. At 43, he owned 6 companies, 3 sports cars, and 1 painfully broken heart. His wife had passed 5 years earlier, leaving him with their only child, Liam, who had not spoken a full sentence since her funeral. Therapists came and went. Nannies stayed a month, at most. But Carter, desperate to bring joy back to his son's eyes, made a strange decision, one that would echo far beyond his expectations. He would let Liam choose. Carter sent out invites to a select group of elite models, wealthy socialites, and influential women. "Come to my estate this Saturday," the message read, "and let my son decide who might one day become his new mother." The press called it heartless. A public audition for love. But Carter did not care what they thought. He only cared about Liam. The day of the event arrived. Women in designer dresses sipped champagne on marble floors, flashing perfect smiles and whispering to each other. But Liam stayed hidden behind the velvet curtain near the kitchen, his little fingers clutching his favorite toy, a worn plush elephant named Daisy. That was when Maya walked past. She wore no diamonds, no makeup, and no high heels. Just simple sneakers and a maid's apron. She had been working at the estate for 3 months, quietly sweeping floors and singing to herself when she thought no one was listening. But Liam listened. Every time. "Miss Maya," he whispered now, tugging at her apron. "Will you come?" Maya blinked. "Come where, sweetie?" "To the front," Liam said softly. "Daddy said I have to pick." "And I already did." Maya's heart nearly stopped. She looked up, right into the eyes of Carter Montgomery, who had just stepped onto the stage. "Ladies," he said into the microphone, "my son is ready to choose." And that was the moment Liam took Maya's hand. The models lined up like it was a runway, each woman more glamorous than the last. Mr. Lancaster watched with pride. "Son, any one of them could be your new mother," he said, flashing a proud smile. Cameras clicked, reporters whispered, and the entire estate staff watched from the shadows. But little Ethan did not look impressed. In fact, he looked upset. He stepped down from the velvet stage, his little tuxedo dragging slightly behind him. He wandered past the models, ignoring their waves, their blown kisses, their soft-spoken greetings. The crowd began to murmur. "What is he doing?" One of the guests whispered. "He is 5, Mr. Lancaster laughed nervously. "He probably wants his toy truck." But Ethan was not looking for a toy. He was looking for her. Behind the curtains, crouched near a silver tray of spilled glasses, stood Amara, the maid who had bandaged his knee when he fell in the garden, who told him bedtime stories when his father worked late, and who once gave up her own lunch just so he could have his favorite sandwich. "Hi, Miss Amara," Ethan said, gently tugging her sleeve. She turned, confused. "You should be with your father, sweetheart." But before she could stop him, Ethan ran back on stage, dragging Amara behind him. "I choose her," he said, pointing up at the stunned maid beside him. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Mr. Lancaster's eyes widened in horror. "Ethan, this is not a joke." But Ethan stood firm. "You said I could choose a mother. I choose Amara. She loves me even when no one is watching." The room fell completely silent. Amara, frozen in shock, shook her head. "No, Ethan. I am just the help. This is not how things work." But the boy held her hand tighter. "I do not care. She is kind. She makes me feel safe. I want her." From the back of the crowd, someone clapped. Then another. And another. Until suddenly, the whole room erupted. But not everyone was happy. And what Mr. Lancaster said next changed everything. The crowd inside the ballroom had grown quiet. All eyes turned to little Lucas, who who stood with wide, serious eyes and a trembling lower lip. He looked so small next to the tall, elegant women lined up like porcelain dolls. He looked at his father. Then back at the models. And then, he pointed. But not at the women in gowns. His tiny finger stretched toward the back of the room. "I want her," Lucas said clearly. Gasps echoed across the room. Every head turned as the spotlight followed the boy's pointing finger. Landing on Amara, the black maid who had just come out from the kitchen holding a silver tray. She froze. The tray trembled slightly in her hands. "What?" one of the models snapped. Another scoffed. The millionaire's jaw clenched. "Lucas, that's the maid." "You were supposed to choose," Lucas cut him off. "You said to choose the one who feels like a real mommy. I don't want someone who smells like perfume and fake hugs. I want Amara. She reads to me. She sings with me when I cry. She makes me pancakes like Mom used to." Tears welled up in Amara's eyes. She tried to speak, but no words came. One of the guests whispered, "Is this some kind of joke?" Another added, "That child clearly doesn't know what he's doing." But Lucas stood his ground, tugging on his father's sleeve. "You promised." Mr. Caldwell, usually calm, composed, the master of every room, felt the walls closing in. Amara slowly set down the tray and stepped forward. "Sir. I never intended for this. I know my place." But Lucas grabbed her hand. "This is your place. With us." A silence heavier than stone filled the room. And then, from the hallway came the unexpected sound of high heels clacking rapidly. The doors burst open. A woman stood there, older, proud, with piercing eyes and a diamond necklace that screamed money. "Mother," the millionaire breathed. She marched in, eyes fixed on Amara and Lucas, and said something that no one expected. "Now that is the only woman here worthy of being called mother." There was silence. Then, young Daniel's voice rang through the hall, trembling but clear. "I choose her," he said, pointing at Amina, the maid. "She's the only one who made me feel loved." Gasps echoed. A few models chuckled, thinking it was a child's joke. But Amina stood frozen. Her hands, still slightly wet from cleaning dishes, trembled. She looked around, unsure what to do. Mr. Delacroix, the billionaire, stepped forward. His eyes searched his son's face. "Why her?" he asked, his voice low, almost pained. Daniel stepped off the stage. "Because when I had a nightmare, she held my hand. When I was scared of the thunder, she sang to me. When I cried because you were too busy, she sat with me. I do not care about the fancy dresses or makeup. I want someone who makes me feel safe. Someone who feels like a real mom." The room fell silent again, but this time, with reverence. The models lowered their eyes. Even the staff paused. The cameras were still rolling. Mr. Delacroix stared at Amina. For the first time, he really saw her, not just a uniform, not just a background figure, but the woman who had been quietly raising his son. A single tear rolled down Amina's cheek. Then, something unexpected happened. The billionaire knelt before her. "I am ashamed I did not notice before," he said, his voice raw. "You gave my son more love than I ever did. If you will accept it. I want to start again. Not as an employer. But as a family." The audience gasped. One of the models even clapped. Daniel ran to Amina, hugging her tightly. And this time, Amina hugged back, with all the warmth of a mother who had waited years to be seen. Months later, tabloids called it the strangest love story ever told. But to them, it was home. A boy, a maid, and a billionaire, rebuilt by love. Subscribe for more stories that touch your heart and remind you, family is not made by blood. It is built by love.